when I talk about conditioning, I can't buy into the strict human design definition of conditioning because I don't think it makes sense. So when I'm talking about conditioning, I'm talking about, yes, your open centers for sure. And also the natural biological neuro imprinting that happened with you witnessing how your parents behaved in the world, which is why you can be a manifesting generator with a 3420 who was raised by two projectors and go out into the world and think you're a projector because that's how you saw your parents behave. And you don't realize, oh, I have a different choice. So we're imprinted. Then we have our genetics, our epigenes. So we have ancestral memory that also conditions some of our choices and our behaviors. Then we have our family of origin patterns that condition us, meaning you're inheriting your design from your grandparents because you inherit your design from your grandparents. Your parents have inherited theirs from their grandparents. You have this every other generation dynamic that switches off, so you've got this intergenerational energetic dynamic that's happening that's also going to influence it. Right? And then of course your own life experiences are also sometimes going to condition you. You might have grown up in a war. You might have grown up in poverty. You might have grown up in other circumstances and situations, and those are going to condition you too. Especially if we look at, the definition. I have a definition of trauma that's very different than the traditional definition of trauma. My definition of trauma, and this is based on what I've seen in my clients in the last 35 years. Anytime you lose connection with your sense of value and your right place in the world, your body experiences that as trauma. And when you get traumatized in that way, it's going to also impact how you behave, because part of what your conditioning is done to you is it's given you behavioral patterns that I call protective identities that cause you to act a certain way in the world because it keeps you from being vulnerable and it protects you and keeps you safe. I think what you're asking, let me see if I've got this right, is that you're holding on to it. And you're wondering, how can you hold on to it if it's not sustainable? And the answer is you can't. Because eventually, if you're holding on to your conditioning and your openness, and you're acting as if you have an energy that's not inherently sourced from within you, you will burn out. You won't be able to hold that energy. You might not burn out in your 20s, but it will catch up with you at a certain point. This is the topic of my TED Talk. I did a research study of more than 1,000 participants on my list. And 93% of the people in that study reported themselves as being burned out, which, by the way, is way above the 63% that the National Institutes for Health and the CDC are reporting in America. I'm going to say, I think we are burned out. I totally think we are all burned out. Mm-hmm. I think the way in which we define it and the numbers are not accurately reflecting that we're burned out, because we are equating burnout to overworking, and that's it. And we're not looking at unresolved trauma and misalignment in who you think you are as a source of trauma and the role that it plays in burning people out. I think we've gotten so used to being collectively burned out that the things that we do as a culture, like Netflix and chill, how can that be a normal thing if you really think about it? That's a burned out thing. It's not normal to sit in front of a screen for 12 hours, eating whatever you might be eating. That's burned out. Mm-hmm. That's a non-adaptive behavior in the context of the real world. You can't do that forever and be sustainable, right?